Woke up this morning with my mind set on loving me. With my mind
Welcome to the Q&A Exchange.
I'm Kuyani Denise, your self-healing coach.
And I am April Diane, self-care coach. And our topic for today is to ghost or not to ghost. That is the question. And so what exactly is ghosting?
Well, I don't have a formal definition, but let's be Google about it and let's get a formal.
Google. Let's consult the professional.
What is ghosting?
What is ghosting?
Uh,
What does Google have to say?
They definitely have it in the whole dictionary in the with that dictionary app. So it says the practice of ending a personal relationship with someone by suddenly and without explanation withdrawing from all communication. That just even makes it sound worse. You know what I mean? Like
Suddenly and without explanation.
Come on. I'm mad. See, I was cool, and now I'm mad. Like,
Mad, huh?
Bye. No bye. No goodbye. Whew. You just disappear into thin air.
So, I mean, it's true, right? Sometimes it's necessary to release a relationship that's not working for you, right? You know my motto, if it doesn't bring me peace, then it's stealing my joy. It's gotta go.
Mm-hmm.
Bottom line, right?
Mm-hmm.
I definitely give opportunities for people for me to see if maybe I was just in my feelings that day. You know, I also look to see is this a pattern of behavior, with this person, or is this just an isolated incident? When I'm making a decision about how involved I want a person in my life. And I feel like some of us feel like we just have to let people, hang on and keep, just stay on. So a part of self-care mastery is being intentional. I feel like at the foundation of self-care mastery is intentional living. Being very specific, and clear about your lifestyle and the energy that you want around you. Some we cannot control, right? In our work environments, in our school environments, sometimes they're just people that we're going to interact with, in a roundabout way. But we can choose just how much involvement we want a person to have in our lives. Like you can choose. Everybody is not for you.
That's right.
It doesn't mean that anything is necessarily wrong with the person. It's just, it's kind of like our energy is kind of like a bank account, I feel like. You have a certain amount deposited in, and you can't withdraw more than you have in your account. Otherwise, your account is delinquent. Yeah. Say that again.
You can't overdraft your energy account.
Come on now. I love that. Yeah, you can't. And some people are energy vampires, right? They'll try to soak all of your energy up and not deposit anything back into you, right? So they need to be making deposits also. If they're withdrawing, they need to be making deposits. So especially when you're at the heart of self-care mastery at the very beginning, I feel like, or, even though this is not always true for everybody, right? Because the process is never linear. It's not the same for everybody. You may be good at setting boundaries, but for some people, the first step of self-care mastery is the ability to set boundaries, healthy boundaries with people. So I don't think that ghosting is a healthy way to set a boundary. Okay. But with that being said, you got to do what you need to do for you. If you are just really not in a place emotionally, mentally, where you can maturely set a boundary, then if you just kind of fade into the background from someone, then that just may be what you have to do. Is it the right way to go about it? That's for you to decide. That's for you to decide. Is it nice? No, I don't think it's nice. I don't think it's nice to just completely trust someone.
I learned some new definitions today. I learned a definition for nice that is different from what we think. And I learned the difference between nice and kindness, because we use the two interchangeably and they're not the same thing. So, nice normally pertains to accepting and tolerating. And even though it doesn't come from a genuine place of caring for the individual that you're accepting and tolerating. So basically you're putting up with shit. And you're not saying anything about it because you don't want to trouble the waters or rustle feathers or whatever. Kindness is when you genuinely care about someone and you do kind things, whether you treat them well. They could be acting a whole fool, but you genuinely care and you want them to feel safe enough to not behave that way, or feel safe enough to behave that way and not feel like they're going to be penalized. So you treat them well. You're not just tolerating them. You're not just being nice. Whereas in niceness, you could be as uncomfortable as all get out, but you keep letting it happen and end up exhibiting passive aggressive behaviors at some point because you don't really like what this person is doing, or you don't really like them at all. You're just putting up with it because it's expected of you. So that was my problem. Being nice. Now, before I say anything, I want to apologize to the two people. I don't think it's more than two who I am in communication with now, but the two people that I ghosted without explanation, and they were men. And when I did that, I ghosted a whole bunch of dudes. Yes, it was a bunch of dudes. I be talking to dudes, not anymore, but I used to talk to a lot of guys, talking to them. But the reason that I ghosted this group of men was because they were all pulling on me, trying to get to be in relationship with me in some kind of way. All of them really just wanted sex, real talk. And I was communicating that wasn't what I wanted, but they kept pushing in that area, and it was uncomfortable. And it's like, if I'm telling you I don't want this, that I want a real relationship, that I'm waiting for someone to be in right relationship with, that's gonna give me everything, and I'm able to give them everything, but you keep trying to push that, then I don't want to talk to you anymore. So two of those people were a lot milder about their approach, but it was, either in my heart it was still the same thing, or because I was surrounded by so much of that I just put them all in the same basket. So I just blocked and deleted everybody because I couldn't take it anymore. And so, I went on about my life and I didn't care. So, but two of them probably didn't deserve that. And so I'm apologizing now. You know who you are.
You know who you
are. I know you are. It wasn't okay for me to do that. And yeah, I will handle it in a more mature way going forward. So not too long after, like a year later, that's when it happened to me. And I was probably ghosted by tons of people before that because, I used to be a Christian and now I'm not. And so my pages on social media reflect that I'm a free thinker, that I still believe in God, but I am going to be the entire person that he created me to be. And a lot of folks who are devout and staunch are troubled by my presence. So they're gone. I know they're gone because I don't see their stuff anymore. I'm like, oh, I wonder what happened to so-and-so. Well, I haven't seen something like, oh, they done blocked me. And it's cool. They got to do what they need to do to exist in this life. And if that means excluding me from it, by all means, I'm not mad at them about it. But the people that I was close to, who I was actually in communication with regularly, that all of a sudden just disappeared. They're not dead, they're not sick. And I know this because months later I've seen them somewhere on my page. Like, oh, you and I was about to do this whole thing together, and now all of a sudden you're gone. I'm like, that's out of character. To me, ghosting is fine if you need to protect yourself. Like I said, there were men who kept pushing up on me. One dude was trying to fly me out to his house every other weekend to spend the weekend, and he was trying to transform me into what I was in my teenage years. He was like, I want you to get a weave so your hair can be long and like
He was very intentional and specific.
He was okay for me to look like what I looked like. He was fetishizing. It was insane. And I kept saying, I don't want that. I don't want that. I don't want a sexual relationship. He was like, I know you don't want a commitment. And I'm not, it's like he didn't hear me. It was like, all he could hear was the part, because I said, I didn't want to commit to anyone. All he heard was that. He didn't hear the part about not wanting a sexual relationship. He just kept over and over again, and he kept calling me. And I was like, you know what?
He wasn't making no deposits. He was trying to strictly withdraw.
Exactly. Get favor by telling me he was going to pay for my weave. I'm like, first of all, now I transform on a regular basis. But I was like, I'm natural, fool. I'm not finna get no hair sewn into my head. I need hair I can snatch off my head. We're not doing that. But this dude was not. So I had to ghost him. Same thing with someone else. Constantly talking that, like every time I look in my inbox, you done said something slick. And I'm like, ew, who wants to always be looked at as an object, as a sexual object? I don't. So, I had to ghost him. That I needed to do for my mental health. It was during the pandemic too. I was like, I can't even go nowhere. This is what I have to open. I don't even want to touch my phone anymore because this is all I see. I was like, I can't. So those types of things make sense. If you've tried to communicate with the person and they still treat you in a way that makes you feel less than whole, then ghosting, in my opinion, is okay for that. But someone that that they've done something that hurt you and they don't know they did it, and you just disappear, that's not okay, because you got people trying to figure out what happened. And that's what happened to me with the two people that ghosted me. I was like, I don't know what I did. I really don't. Like, tell me. You be like this, and then you disappear.
Right.
And I'm like, that's not okay, because that's a blow to a person's esteem. I allowed you into my heart. I gave you residency here, and you just up and go. So now I got to go heal that. And I got to go heal it, not knowing why I have to go heal it. You just go. That's not cool. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like there are times when it calls for it. And so when it's a matter of safety and your mental and emotional health, I do think it's time. There are times when it calls for it. But I think other times that we need to be more mature about things. No, you don't have to give long, drawn out explanations. I would have taken a phone call and been like, I don't think that we should do this together anymore, and I'm not going to be communicating anymore. And I would have been like, all right, I don't like that, but okay. I may have asked, do you feel like you can tell me why? And if the person said, no, I'm not doing that, because I know how I feel when I don't want to explain something. So I'm not going to push you to do that. I'm like, all right, love you, wish you the best. Hope you heal.
Some people think that they need closure, and so that's the reason why people want justification for the decision that you make. Mm-hmm. But, I'm here to say, honestly, first off, to go back to what you said about the definition between nice and kindness. I love that so much because oftentimes as kids, we're often told, be nice, play nice, and this could even mean, if someone was rude or disrespectful to you, oh, be nice. That's not nice. I honestly get tired of the word nice, and I'm surprised that I even use it to say, that's not nice, but it's just, I like the idea of better. It's just try to be kind in whatever it is that you do. Sometimes you have to be, the kindness has to be extended to yourself. You have to do what you need to do to be kind to yourself. And that's okay too. As long as you can live with it, you're at peace with it, you're not hurting or harming yourself or no one else, then it's valid. Yeah. But to be nice, sometimes people use the word nice as a way to manipulate you. Even the word mean, oh, you're being mean, not doing something that they want you to do, then you become being mean. Mm-hmm. But those words can become very manipulative. and trying to get you to control you and how you feel and what actions you take. So whenever someone, now it kind of used like make my skin crawl when somebody, oh, you so nice. Because sometimes people use that as, again, like I said, to try to manipulate you to bleed you dry, right? To continue to make withdrawals. So people say, oh, you're so nice. At one point when I was fed up with the word, I'd be like, no, I'm not. And I know how crazy that sounds, but I'm like, no, I'm not nice.
I'm not.
Not in the way that you mean I'm nice. So no, I'm kind, but I'm not a pushover, and you'll soon find out if you try to push me over and I identify it, you'll soon find out. That I do have another side. But it's not a side that I try to bring out unless I absolutely need to. And so another thing that you said, there are times when ghosting is absolutely appropriate. Or rather, I was saying it was a question more so, are there times when ghosting is appropriate? And I think that you did identify that there really are times when ghosting is appropriate. And now you may grow and evolve with your process of how you set boundaries with people, right? And you improve. So it's just important for you to reflect every day. We learn from yesterday. So we're not ever asking for perfection with this self-care mastery stuff. Whatever you do when you do it, as long as you're not harming yourself or someone else, you needed to do that for your growth and development at that particular time. Even if tomorrow you realize that there's a better way for you to navigate it, that's what this whole process is about. It's about learning and reflecting, and self-care mastery requires that you do that. You reflect on how you showed up yesterday, so there have been times when I have tried to communicate with someone about certain things that I didn't like, and then they don't get it. And they will try to manipulate you. They will try to say, oh, you're too sensitive, or, whatever it is, to try to devalue your feelings. And so then you start to identify there's a pattern of disrespect, or there's a pattern of not accepting who I am and what I express. And so after a while, you don't want to keep explaining the same thing over. They know what it is. And so for those type of people and those type of scenarios with people who don't respect boundaries and aren't going to hear you, then maybe you do have to just release the relationship. And I'm going to tell you why too. Remember what I was just talking about before we logged in was sometimes you will try to end a connection with someone and you will try to give them the benefit of the doubt and explain so that they can have closure, right? But instead of them just releasing and accepting that, they will either use that as an opportunity to dig in deeper their claws, or they will try to justify their behavior. And now you're confused about whether or not you should be making this decision. So if you are feeling any kind of angst about that and you need to let it go, then sometimes it's just easier just to release yourself without any conversation. I am the queen of sending a text message, and as a part of
but I don't want you no more. Goodbye.
So my biggest thing with the ghosting for me that I've noticed is that I've been doing some dating online. Yeah, I'm an online dater. And there's nothing wrong with online dating. Like, we had to do it in 2020. Like, this is what had to happen. Where else were you meeting people?
I found one of my worst relationships.
Yeah. One of your worst relationships? That's so funny. But where else are you meeting people? Like, I've done all different types of dating as social experiments and all that kind of stuff. But with the dating thing, when you're when you're just meeting people, it's not a guarantee that this person fits into your life. You meet someone, you don't know them. They're an unopened package, right? And then you start to talk and communicate with that person. And then you're like, oh, wait a minute. You start to vet them. You have to vet people. Self-care mastery requires intentional living, remember. And so you have a clear description or idea or vision for how you want your life to be, right? And that includes the type of energy that you want around you. So when you connect with someone, you may notice at first that you guys have a few things in common, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you guys are going to be a great fit. And so there's still some processing to go through. I feel like when you really are intent on being a master of self-care, you really take more time to vet the people that you keep in your circle. Okay, so with this online dating thing that I'm talking to y'all about, I don't have time to be going into long, drawn out explanations for people that I've conversated with for 2 minutes. You know what I mean? When I identify that this ain't going nowhere, right? I clearly will tell them, usually via text message, I'm going to move on from this. I wish you the best in your search, but and stay well. That's my favorite famous line. Most of the time they will, respond in kind and say, well, you too, wish you the best, and we can move on. Most of the time they already know that there's not as much of a connection. But you have to be careful because some people sometimes will hang around just to see if they can get a withdrawal. It doesn't mean that they want to commit to something long-term with you. So they will just see if they can go for a ride, and you know what I'm talking about, and, some hanky-panky, and then just release you. And so sometimes that's their process. Some people are just looking for deposits into their account without making any deposits into yours. So if you can consider that text message process ghosting if you want, but at least I'm being clear and I'm letting you know.
You're telling them.
I am telling them. I don't tell everybody,
That's like, so it reminds me of something I used to do, right? I would be on the phone arguing with someone. If y'all don't know by now, I used to be out here in these streets. But anyway, I'm arguing with a dude, and I see that the conversation's going nowhere. I'm being disrespected, and I'll say, well, this is not working. You're just going to keep going in that direction, and I don't want to do this anymore. So I'm hanging up. If you keep talking, it's not my fault that you get the click. And they're still talking, and I hang up. Now, this is back when you could actually hang up the phone, not when you just press a button, where you just click, hang up the phone. I would hang up, and then they would be calling back, and I wouldn't answer because I'm like, I said before, I gave you a warning. I gave you fair warning. This ain't working. I'm hanging up. So to me, the text message is the hang up. It's like, I'm telling you, I don't know. We're not doing this no more. Bye. And that's that. So that's not ghosting. You told them.
I did tell them. And it's not all the time because there is any conflict or because I'm at odds with them. It's often just, I'm very clear about what I want and what I deserve and what I'm a good fit with. And so when I identify that that's not it, I want to let them know as soon as possible. I don't want to waste their time. I don't want to waste my time. So I just let it go. But I have ghosted some people, and that wasn't kind. But I didn't know any other way to end the relationship at that particular time, and I'm going to tell you why. Because, like what I said in the beginning, some people will just drag you on and on trying to explain their poor behavior. And for those people, you notice that there's a pattern and you just have to end it. And so there are specific personality types that I notice. Some people have some undiagnosed mental health disorders. And they will, they are very good at manipulating people and their time, and they're good at wasting their own time. you know, and they don't have a clear vision for their lives. They're just kind of floating, and they're just, you know, trying to see what will stick. They're fishing. I call those fishers too. They're fishing, just trying to see what they can catch. They don't really have, they just want anybody so that they can feed off of someone else's energy.
Yeah. Oh, girl, you just pretty much described damn near everybody that I've ever been with.
Oh gosh. So now we have to look at the common denominator.
Yeah. So
It has a lot to do with our vetting process.
hello, and
Why it's so important to vet and to know what you want and vet. Sorry, go ahead.
no, and that and the lack of boundaries, because that was when you said that about okay, this person is interfering with the boundary, so they gotta go. Um, I realized that if I had some boundaries, I may not have had to ghost people, or some people. Some folks, like you said, some folks you can tell them until you blue in the face, you, and then you got to just halt all communication and say nothing else.
I think it's a game.
Yeah, they really do. And that part, and it's not naivete, it's just the longing for people to just be real. It's frustrating to me that the behavior actually exists where people seek people out to see what they can get out of them, whether it's financial or physical or emotional. That people really look, and namely men, because I've never dated women, so I don't know if women do this, but namely they look for women that they can leech off of. Not all men. I don't believe that about all men. I've seen healthy relationships. I know that there are men who exist who are not playing games, who are not out here to hurt women, who are not just looking for themselves. But I know that I was in the habit of attracting those types of men because my self-esteem was low, because I didn't believe that I was valuable enough to have more than that. So I constantly, like you and I had described, I constantly got the same man in a different body. And these men, some of them consciously, others of them maybe not so much, were looking for someone to make them feel good wherever they were. Didn't necessarily have any direction, didn't necessarily have a life plan. They just knew they either wanted to be with someone, or they wanted some semblance of compatibility, not necessarily in the right ways, but they wanted to feel good. And I was it. And I was it because I am loving, I am kind, I am a healer, and it's very evident when you meet me. Somehow these ones know that's a healer, and maybe their brain's not saying I need a healer, but whatever's missing inside of them that is craving someone like me is a part that is unhealed. And I didn't have boundaries, and I didn't know that I didn't have them. I was just thinking, if I love them well enough, they'll treat me well. That's it. It's just love, 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 love. But love comes in many forms. Love is tender, love is kind, but it's also tough. And love is going to do and say the things that need to be done and said so that you can grow, because love grows. And so I didn't have that kind of love. I did not know that I needed to, before we get this far, let me let you know this. And I'm not saying tell them I'm not doing, no. If they do something that does not fit into your space, you let them know. And if they acknowledge it and they don't repeat the behavior very early in the relationship, then you can move forward. But if this person is constantly doing this, and then you're just like, oh, it'll get better. Oh, well, they know I care about them, and I know they don't mean it, so it'll change. No, it's not. You're not telling them under no uncertain terms that this is not acceptable and you're not tolerating it, because you stick around and you let them do it. And so what happened was, like me, whose tolerance level got lower and lower and lower as I went through these relationships, I just disappeared. And it's like, okay, I can't no more. But not before I said anything. I want to go back really quick to the online dating thing. So I've tried it twice. The first one was Black People Meet, worst experience ever. No, it's not the worst, because that's not where I found the boyfriend that I had. And then the Black app, and Black is BLK. On Black People Meet, I literally had not really, I barely pressed the button to send my profile before my inbox was flooded. I had over 250 likes and messages in like less than a minute. And that automatically let me know these dudes are not out here looking for a wife. They looking for somebody to mess with for as long as it is convenient and as long as they can get away with it.
They want to go for a ride.
Yes.
Yeah.
And picked one of them fools. Excuse me.
It is what it is.
Think of another name right now. I picked one of those fools. And out the gate, he was not honoring the boundaries. So he was like, can we video chat? And I'm like, that's fine, because I get wanting to make sure it's a real person, and
Yes.
Get
catfished.
Right. So we did that. And he wanted to do that all the time. And I was like, no, after work, I'll call you X, Y, and Z time. And he didn't listen. So he would just video call me whenever he felt like it. Of course, I didn't answer. And then one time when I did answer, literally like second conversation, if not the first one, he wants to talk about my body parts. And I'm like, yeah. So that conversation ended. And the next time that he tried to video call me without my permission during a time when I told him not to do it, I just blocked him. I just blocked him and deleted him, because I'm like, you know what? I already know what this relationship is going to be like if I allow you to continue, because you're already not honoring me, and you don't even know me yet, And so and then fast forward to the following year when I met a guy that I ended up being with for 10 months who was out. Help us, Lord. No boundaries. No boundaries. But that one I didn't ghost. That one I was like, here, this is why we can't be together. Boom, boom, bip, da 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 da. Peace out. And then I blocked, deleted, killed all of that. But when it comes to to try to avoid having to just disappear on people, I believe that the boundaries are important, and I believe that the connection with self-care and self-healing. So self-healing, and the great need for it is evident in these types of situations, because if you are availing yourself to unwelcome treatment, you are clearly there's some areas in you that are not whole, that think that you have to accept this behavior to have relationship, and you don't. And so if I can correlate the two, and I know that I can, because they are sort of intertwined. Self-care is what you do to ensure that the self-healing sticks, and that the self-healing is maintained, and that the self-healing is ongoing, because you can heal from something, but then it's kind of like there's a scripture in the Bible where a man cleaned out his home and he set everything in order, and then he left, and then the strong man came in, broke in his house, and stole everything. He had set his house in order, but he did not put anything in it. He didn't put any protections. He didn't cover himself. So when you empty yourself of something that is unhealthy for you, you have to fill it back with something that is healthy, and you have to continue to do it. And I believe that that's where self-care comes in. But when we are not healing, and we're not doing the work ourselves, we tend to look for these relationships to do it for us. Or if I could just have someone, if I could just have somebody with me, I'll feel better. I'll heal. I was in something where me and that person decided that we were going to heal together. You can kind of do that, but you can't do that if you're not already actively for real healing. If there's no evidence of the healing happening, then what are y'all doing?
Both people have to be doing the work.
Both people have to be evidence. It can't just be something you say. And the evidence comes when there is maybe a conflict or a difference of opinion, and the person's response comes from an unhealed place. Then you know that if you lean into that and allow that to continue, your unhealed places are going to be neglected, because now you have to give your healing energy to that person.
Yeah, and that's not good.
Right.
You said So one of the things that happens a lot of times is when we have experienced trauma, right? When we have been in certain environments, we oftentimes try to look for the good in people, right? Which is not a bad thing to do. But the one thing that we have to be careful about is being committed to people's potential. You can't be committed to someone's potential. You have to pay attention to how the person is showing up today and how they consistently show up. So I'm not talking about isolated incidents. I'm not talking about someone having a bad day. I'm talking about a pattern of behavior that you identify as being toxic. You know, there are certain levels of our journey that we may not be able to handle certain amounts of toxicity. We all have some, behavior practices and toxicity that are toxic behavior patterns, or just things that we need to work on. Let's just say that, right? But some people are actively working and willing to work on that stuff, and some people just really are not. And you have to pay attention to the people who are not. If you bring something to someone's attention and they don't want to, and they don't receive it, or even at least reflect on it or think on it, they're not in a position to take responsibility. They're not a person who is into self-improvement or self-development at that particular time. And they can be very, very toxic, and you need to be careful of that. Mm-hmm. So you can see good things in people, but it doesn't mean that they are acting from that place often enough to make them safe for your life. So you have to be careful. Pay attention to how people treat themselves and other people, because they're going to treat you in a similar manner. So that's my one point is you cannot be committed to potential.
Mm-hmm. Come on.
See how people are showing up. Also, disappearing is passive aggressive behavior. Mm-hmm. If you've been in a relationship or a connection with someone, and then all of a sudden you've had a friendship and you guys were really close, and then all of a sudden you just decide to not communicate or to ghost them, right? That's passive aggressive. That's because you are either not proficient at setting boundaries, and not proficient at saying no, and not proficient at having healthy communication. Mm-hmm. So that's a you thing. Mm-hmm. So you need to, if you don't feel safe to set a boundary, say no, or communicate with someone, then you need to check on your vetting process. Who are you allowing into your life? You should only have close connections with people you feel safe with being able to communicate with. If you don't feel able to communicate or able to set a boundary, then it will lead you to passive aggressive behavior because you don't feel safe, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. So you have to be more mindful about who you let into your life, because a healthy relationship will allow you to set boundaries and prevent you from being passive aggressive. Now, the moment that you set a boundary or you say no to someone, this is one of the ways that you can determine and vet, and it's an opportunity to vet people in your life, is when you say no and how they respond to your no. If you set a boundary and how they respond to your boundary, that is a way for you to vet them. Because if you say no and then all of a sudden they start to isolate themselves from you, or they start to, ghost you, or, throw you some shade or give you some different, shade, basically different energy, then you know that they really don't have your best interest in mind, because a friend will respect that you have boundaries. A friend will respect when you have to say no. Mm-hmm. And someone who is not doing that is not being a friend. Do they have the potential to be a friend? Maybe, but we're not living off their potential. We're not operating off potential. It is not being a good person to live off of people's potential only. You got to be real with what you're seeing from them, how they're showing up today. And then another thing, when you are doing this self-care mastery and when you are healing yourself, right, you need to make a list of deal breakers in terms of people's behavior. You might just, maybe it's a mental list, whatever. I like to be kind of specific. You could write it down. But there are certain things that if someone does, I'm not dealing with that. And you need to have that list ready so that you can compare. If you connect with someone and you start to see the similar behavior patterns, that you can save yourself some time and say, oh, this is an unhealthy situation for me. I'm not going to go into this, or I'm not going to continue this.
That's right.
So, yeah. Things and relationships really, they shouldn't start out rocky, right?
Hell.
Shouldn't start out with a lot of conflict and stuff that you have to work through. Like, I feel like, with these relationships that we have, a lot of people misunderstand what it means to push through a relationship. Like, sometimes we're pushing through stuff that's really harmful, that came from before, that's really harmful, that is abusive. You do not have to push through abuse. Okay.
So, if I can piggyback on that, and so you and I speaking as people who are seasoned. I mean, I'm about 10 years older than you, but still seasoned people. We've been through enough to know that, that everything has, let me think of the word. So that can be true, that relationships take work. That can be true depending on the relationship and the time period of your life. So when I got married at age 30, I was prepared to go the long haul with this person that I married. And I did. Relationships take work. Did it start out rocky? It didn't start out rocky in terms of us having issues with each other. But I saw a lot of red flags out the gate. But, I was in religion and I was settling for things that I was taught that I should settle for. And the main idea in my head was that, well, we can work this out. We can talk this through and we can work it out. 15 years in, there was no talking and working nothing out no more. I had tolerated, I had put up with, I had talked about and reasoned with and lived off of the potential. This will potentially get better. This, he has the potential to be this. He has the potential to do that. So through, the failed businesses and the mistreatment and all the other things I had put up with and I had tolerated. So fast forward, starting over again at almost age 50 and meeting someone who has stuff that has to be worked out. I'm coming into a relationship that already needs work. We don't have to do that all the time. It is possible to be with someone who does not push you through the ringer. If y'all are together and y'all have a great relationship and somebody gets sick, you work through that. If y'all have some sort of financial crisis, you work through that. If there's some disagreements, things that are not going to explode the house, you work through that. But not out the gate. Not out the gate. You got to fight for this relationship. You got to fight to get this person to treat you some kind of way. Yeah. No. If things come up in the relationship, they're new. They are the things that happened in this relationship that didn't come from that person's baggage or your baggage or unhealed places in them or unhealed places in you. These are new things that we have grown to love. We love each other. We care for each other. We know we're doing this thing. So we're working through them together. People get that twisted. They think, when you hear people say, where should things take work? We've been through together. Everybody ain't got to have a struggle to love story. Everybody, no.
I love that. And it's funny that women oftentimes will push through, in order to get to a good place with a man, while he's sorting himself out and trying to, and no.
I feel like, at this stage in my life, this is me personally, I'm not doing it anymore. And I am working on me so that when we do get together and something comes up, I'm not automatically putting you in a box with some people that I dealt with before. Because if a real issue arises that has nothing to do with anything that and I'm treating you like it's somewhere I've been before, then that means I didn't work on my stuff. And so now I'm bringing you drama that you don't need. So when we come together, I'm coming drama free and you're coming drama free, because it's possible. It is absolutely 100% possible. And I'm saying that. I'm putting that in the atmosphere. That I'm not welcoming any madness into my space anymore. I'm not bringing you madness and you're not bringing me any. Immediately, as soon as I see it, I'm like, we ain't doing this. I'm out, and I'm ghosting for sure.
As you ghosting, because to ghost, she said, yeah. So the bottom line is we don't have to earn love.
No,
we don't have to earn love.
Absolutely.
So if we're in a situation where it feels like we're having to, earn this person's love and affection and connection by showing how resilient we are, how much we're able to put up with, that's a clear sign.
Oh my God.
So, you just have to have some parameters. I feel like, honestly, I say this a lot, but before we go into relationships, I feel like we need to take relationship classes, like relationship 101. And I don't know how, I don't know if there are any out there. But if there are, I feel like if before you start dating someone, you should take a relationship class. You should do some therapy or something to help you to make sure that to identify any triggers that you may have, right? So that you can get out ahead of that stuff, right? Identify any unhealed places that you may have. Identify if there's areas in your life where you need to improve your self-care. Mm-hmm. I also feel because that, in order for us to be happy, we have to create happiness within ourselves. We're not supposed to be going into relationships to look for happiness. They're supposed to magnify our happiness. So, if you notice that you are doing a lot of ghosting, it's not a judgment or a negative thing. We're not judging that, right? It just may be an indicator for you that you still need to do some work on your ability to set boundaries, your ability to say no, and your ability to communicate. It also may be an indicator for you that you need to do a better job of vetting the people that you allow to continue to get close to you.
That's right.
And connect with you.
Right. I told you about the application for relationship employment. like make them fill out an application. Kind of, not literally, but like the application is within you. Like you ask the hard questions, because a lot of times we have questions lingering in us and we don't ask them. We can have an interaction with someone and then we'll talk about it with our friend. What do you think this is? Don't tell a story or get someone else's version of story, because if you ask someone else who is not the person, you're going to get their experience. If you're not ready to have difficult conversations with people, and there was a time that I was not, then you're not ready to be in relationships, period, whether they are platonic or romantic relationships. Because I'm going to tell you, difficult questions actually help the relationship to be what it is. If the relationship is meant, then it's going to bring y'all closer together. If the relationship is not meant, it's going to bring y'all further apart. Well, you want both. You want the natural. That's the natural process of connecting with people. And you want that to happen. So if you have a question, you need to ask it. If you have a concern, you need to express it. Do not hold back on saying something or asking something for fear of losing someone, because the right people are going to be sent to you when you are being your authentic self. But if you're not being authentic, if you're not speaking from your heart and asking those things, then you're going to get people who are coming into your space who may not mean you any good, because you're not protecting yourself. Mm-hmm. So sometimes to ghost
means to protect yourself.
I like that.
Sometimes not to ghost means that you are working on having healthy connections with the people you care about. If you care about someone and they've shown that they care about you, take the time to communicate with them. Give them the opportunity to defend themselves is not the right word, but to show up in the relationship, right?
Like
Give them an opportunity to show up, because we are not perfect. We are all progressing and processing and learning from yesterday, or at least we should be. So you want to give the person the opportunity to show up for you and show up for the relationship.
Yeah, I agree. One of the things, and it's funny because I didn't heed my own advice, but I'm on lockdown now. One of the things I'd seen a meme like a couple of years back, and I'm paraphrasing, but basically one of the questions they said that you should ask when beginning a relationship is, what are you healing from? And then the part two of that question is, what are you doing to heal? How are you acting?
I love that. I love that.
I tell you, that is going to either send them running, or if they're really honest, they'll tell you, and at least maybe, I mean, you'll get a good friendship out of it. You might not be able to rock in a relationship, but at least, if they're actively healing from something and you're actively healing from something, maybe every now and then y'all could talk and y'all could, give each other pointers or whatever, maybe, because even that, like you said, even platonic relationships can become dangerous, because I've had friends who were drawing and drawing and drawing, but not depositing. And it's like, I gotta go. I'm not finna do that anymore because you're killing me, but there should listen, they scary questions, but some folk need to hear that, because they need to stop and think, well, am I healing? Am I so? Because some folks go through trauma and don't know it. They just bury it, and then it all explodes in their relationships, and they don't know that that's what's happening.
And it can take years for things to resurface. When you've been suppressing something for a long time, it's going to show up and manifest in your life in some way. And it can take years for it to actually show up. You may do a really good job of masking and covering it up, but eventually it's going to come to the surface. And I feel like you want to do it, as early as you know and are aware of it as possible. So ask the hard questions. Don't just have surface conversations with your friends. There's a lot of that, a lot of the small talk, a lot of talking about other people and their stuff. Some people have relationships and all they do is talk about other folk, but the bottom line is that's not going to help bring you and the person closer, right? You want to have intellectual and rich, nourishing conversations. Not all the time. I'm not saying that it always has to be, this intellectually stimulating type of thing. But in terms of getting to know one another, I think it's really important that if you get to know one another. So the key to it is you've got to get to know yourself, because you can't have a deep connected relationship with anybody else until you are really asking yourself the hard questions, asking yourself what it is that you want, asking yourself what it is that's hurting you, doing that's a part of the self-healing and self-care mastery. So I think that when you practice self-care, the basic stuff, setting boundaries, spending time sitting in meditation, that's when you start to self-heal also. Because when you set boundaries, you start to clear out your energy field with the people, and you pull out the weeds of people who don't really mean you any good. When you sit in meditation, whether it's sitting in meditation, walking meditation, whatever type of meditation, you start to become more conscious of what's going on in your inner world, what you are really feeling. Because with our lives as human beings, we tend to move so fast and just getting things done. We often don't take some time to check in with ourselves to see, what is it that I'm really feeling? And oftentimes we've been taught to ignore our feelings. So that's something that's important to do. So using those self-care tips that I just mentioned, setting boundaries and sitting and reflecting are some of the techniques that you can use to self-heal. Self-healing is about getting to the core, like, getting deeper into things. Like, you do things to self-care, right? But self-healing happens when
Yeah.
you
You
practice
allow
use
it.
tools.
And when you practice, I feel so it could be, and when you're healing, when you're self-healing, it becomes more important to you to self-care. You start to realize that if I don't do this for myself, then I leave this space unhealed. I leave this, I've nurtured the pain versus nurturing myself into my healing.
Amen.
So yeah, they definitely go together. There's no question. And that's so important in what you said. I think that a lot of people aren't able to self-care because they're not healing. And they're sort of doubling down in the pain because we get used to the pain. It's all we know. But when the pain starts asking for freedom, please let me go. I'm finished with you. We'll freak out. And so trying to hold on to this thing. So self-care is not even a consideration.
And that's funny because I actually think about it as, I think a little in the opposite. I think that when you start practicing self-care,
Mm-hmm.
you start to heal.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like when you spend an extra, you take that bubble bath, the healing is going to start to happen. I feel like sometimes what happens is when people start to self-care, the healing process starts and it becomes scary and they don't like it. They start to become aware that they have feelings, or the feelings that they have been trying to suppress start to come to their awareness.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh no. So they stop doing it. They start busying themselves more. They just do anything. They start distracting themselves with other people's stuff in order to avoid the healing process that starts to happen, because it happens automatically. Once you start doing certain things for yourself, your awareness about your inner world comes to the surface.
That makes sense.
It can be scary.
Yeah. I think I shared with you, and I don't know if we shared it on here, but it's a long time ago. My job had I was working for a school and they had 2 weeks off, and my bosses went away and they let me stay at their place for 4 days. And I had, by then I was a mother of 5. I had my stepdaughter as well. And I worked full time at a school, and I was, I extended myself often to the parents. Sometimes I took their kids home in the evening. I mean, there was a lot. Like, I was active in a lot of people's lives, helping a lot of people to maintain, heal, grow, whatever. I was just there for so many people, including my own household. And so I had these 4 days to myself, and I haven't been by myself in like 6 years. And I don't know what to do. And I'm terrified, and I don't want to be by myself. So I'm trying to find all these things to do to busy myself. And they didn't have a TV. Like, there was no distractions. So I'm trying to find distractions because I'm terrified of being alone, not realizing that how much I needed it. Not just because I needed a break from all the stuff I was doing, because I needed to be with me. And I didn't want to be, because I didn't know who I was outside of all of those things. But everything I tried to do sent me back to the being with me. I went and got a massage, full body massage, 90 minutes. It was torment. It was like pure torture. This man was bad. You hear me? He was no joke at what he was doing. And it was at W Hotel, Bliss Spa, so it was money. He was good. French masseuse. He was not playing around. But because it was making me think about me and how much this was really good for me, and I needed this thing, and where have I been? Why haven't I been doing this whole time? Go to Barnes and Noble thinking I'm escaping to a book somewhere. Find a book that is my whole life. So I'm pushed, as a result of taking this time to care for myself, I am pushed into looking at myself
Yeah.
and looking at all the stuff that's not healed and all the stuff that's being neglected because I'm always so busy
Yeah.
with everyone else. And so that part, that makes sense in that respect. I just feel like they can be both. You know what I mean? That um, when we submit to the healing, that's when we feel more, um, we desire to self care more. Because when I finally submitted to the healing, which wasn't until right before I moved down here, that's when I was like, I'm going to go to the movies by myself. I'm going to take myself to dinner. I'm just going to go sit in the park and read a book. And I'm just going to go over here and close my eyes under the trees and listen to the birds and meditate and do whatever. It was then when I knew that I needed to be on my healing journey permanently, that I was, it, the things that I could do topically, like those things like taking a bath, etc. Those things started to come to me once I decided that I was going to heal on purpose. So I think it may be different for each person. I think that, you know, because it started out that way, what you said. I was practicing or trying to, I was told basically to practice self-care. Oh, we'll be gone. You can have our apartment for 4 days. I wasn't asking for like that. They were like, you need to get away. Yanni, you do so much for everybody. Here, we won't be there. Here, take our apartment. And I'm like, okay. And I didn't think I was going to go there and be faced with myself. I really didn't. And I go there and I'm like, no, I don't want to do this. But everything that I needed to be doing for myself just smacked me in the face. And it was like, we're not going anywhere until you take care of us.
I love that.
That is what you said is profound in that respect, because that's what happened to me when I went to do self-care. That's when that's when the self-healing presented itself and said, let's get this done. And I didn't touch it.
Yeah.
I did for 10 years try to heal myself. I just kept trying to exist in the space I was in and make sure everyone was okay and not me.
Amen. And so if you are out there feeling like, you know, you're ghosting people, because that was our topic, right? To ghost or not to ghost, it may be an indicator to you that you need some more time to yourself. You need to get more clear about what it is that you're more clear about the vision that you have for your life, and more clear about your process for vetting people and your ability to set boundaries and your ability to communicate. So you need to create some safe spaces that will allow you to do that. You know, therapy is definitely very important. And you've gone through the therapy process and are ready for the next step, then you need to have a coach which will help you to stay accountable with taking the actions that you and your therapist outline, because coaches work hand in hand with therapists, right? The therapist will help you unpack, and then the coaches will help you to stay accountable for taking the necessary actions that you need to take so that you can see the transformation and the results in your life after the conversation. So thank you so much. I'm sorry for tuning in. And go ahead, Kuyana, you have one more thing before we go.
So on the flip side of that, if you have been ghosted, in light of what April just shared, maybe that person does need more time to themselves to heal and to also decide where or if you fit into their life, and going forward, how they handle relationships that are difficult for them as well, that cause them to or help support them choosing to ghost people. So just
yeah. And, you know, so that's a very good point that you bring up before we close. You know, it can be very difficult for people to be honest, especially in our culture, the way that things are. People can be afraid of what their honesty is going to, how their honesty is going to be received. Sometimes people just are not good at expressing themselves. And so when they express themselves, they often can do so without emotional intelligence. And so they may not just be in good practice with that. So they choose to ghost because they're afraid of their own anger, you know, their own way of doing things. And so sometimes that's just their practice. It's not always personal. It's not always about you directly, but you can sit in reflection. If you can reach out to them and they do communicate, then great. If they don't, you have to find closure within yourself. Closure is not necessarily something that you do with another being, so you can sit with yourself and find closure and just be real with yourself. Identify if there's anything in there or any responsibility that you can take, identify it, and then just work on to improve it in your next relationships. But, people come and go. So to ghost or not to ghost, it's totally up to you. But what we just suggested is using that if you're doing it a lot, why don't you just check in and see, why am I doing this? Am I bringing in particular people who are not healthy for me? Am I not vetting people properly? Do I have good communication skills? Have I made space for that person to share and feel safe with me to share? Because sometimes we're not as approachable as we think we are, and if someone says something to us, sometimes we immediately can get defensive. And that could be a reason why someone could ghost us as well, because they don't feel like we're going to be receptive to their feelings.
Right.
And so they choose to release us in the best way that they know how.
Right.
So thanks for tuning in. And this was another great episode of the Q&A Exchange. If you haven't already and you're watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and share this video with someone that you think may find this helpful. All right. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye for now. Peace.
Bye.
If you're looking to purchase sea moss in its various forms, visit One Peaceful Yogi on Instagram, and you can learn more about the benefits of sea moss on her Instagram page as well.